With Superman and Fantastic Four both in theaters right now, I thought it would be a good time to look at these characters from two different comic book worlds and what their DC and Marvel crossover would look like. Now, I seem to have seen a lot of people who don't actually remember or even know that a Superman and Fantastic Four crossover has happened before. I believe it was the 90s, if I'm not mistaken. That crossover heavily dealt with Galactus and Cyborg Superman as their main foes. I'm going to give you 4 or 5 different villain team-ups that come from Superman and the Fantastic Four, somewhat of what the plot would be about and how they would handle the villains. There's going to be a lot of details that I'm going to remove from these stories because I got to get through them, and I just want to give you a general idea on what they could be about. I will be removing Cyborg Superman and Galactus from potential options, considering they've already been done in that crossover as well. So let's look at the first matchup I created, obviously starting off strong with the Fantastic Four's Doctor Doom teaming up with Parasite and Metallo. So in a world where Superman and the Fantastic Four exist with one another, Doom has spent a lot of time analyzing Superman from afar. He learns everything about Superman, his alter ego Clark Kent, and has a very keen interest on the Fortress of Solitude. Doctor Doom would eventually find a way to break into the Fortress of Solitude without Superman knowing, where he can now explore and learn so many different truths about the universe and secrets that Superman has been holding here, especially learning a lot about his homeworld in Krypton. Doom, however, also discovers the Phantom Zone, an interdimensional darkness to spend the rest of your days in mindless solitary. The Fantastic Four has been a thorn in his side for far too long, and with Superman around now, this would make the perfect place to send the heroes so that he may never be bothered again. And as someone who wants to make the world a better place in his own image, the Fortress of Solitude could be one of the perfect places for him to be able to plan out how he's going to do that. With all of this different technology that has been found scattered across the universe and remnants of Krypton, this is where Doctor Doom takes it upon himself to create Parasite and Metallo from what he has to his devices in the fortress. Untraditionally, Doom creates Parasite from a crazy alien zoo animal that Superman has in his zoo in the Fortress of Solitude. Doom also comes across Lobo, who is captive in Superman's prisons, and he turns Lobo into a variant of Metallo. This is a Lobo who still kind of has his flair and his humor to him, even as this new version of an android. Doom now lays out the trap for Superman and the Fantastic Four to arrive at the Fortress of Solitude, in which their battle is intense and almost unfair. Doctor Doom, with all the power and intelligence he has, matched with an energy-sucking virus and Parasite, and the pure strength and weakness towards Superman for Metallo. So the Fantastic Four and Superman are convincingly losing the fight at the moment. Now it becomes not winning the battle against Doctor Doom, it's about how does the Fantastic Four and Superman trap Doom in the Phantom Zone before he does it to them. Reed finds a way to hack into Metallo, turning him against Doom. The Human Torch allows Parasite to drain as much energy out of him as possible, which is actually a huge negative to Parasite itself, as it is excreting so much energy and burning so hot, even this creature cannot handle that much heat and power. Then with Superman and the Thing strong-manning everyone together, and then Invisible Woman trapping Parasite, Metallo, and Doctor Doom into a bubble, throwing them into the Phantom Zone to hopefully be trapped forever until they say otherwise. The heroes win the day. Again, very golden, silver agey, a very comic relief type story. The next team up I have here is Brainiac and the Maker, the evil Reed Richards. Traveling the vast multiverse, Brainiac makes his way to a Marvel universe where Reed Richards has dominated his Earth and removed all metahumans from its existence. This Reed, of course, being the Maker, wants to be rid of all superhumans metahumans, but also wants any excuse to defeat other Reed Richards who have better lives than himself. Brainiac and the Maker decide to team up to return to Brainiac's universe, where they can defeat the Fantastic Four. The Maker gets what he wants while also removing other metahumans around the world, whereas Brainiac gets to defeat Superman and bottle up major cities around Earth. With their arrival, Superman and the Fantastic Four do whatever they can to keep civilians safe, even if it is not all that successful, while Reed begins to create countermeasures against the Maker. Eventually, as Reed Richards would discover a way to defeat Brainiac and the Maker, they don't count on the fact that both of them have already come to a conclusion that they would conjoin bodies and basically become one. I don't know what you would call a Brainiac and Maker concoction. Maybe the Maniac? I don't know. Let's go with it. During a battle where they are completely struggling to even fight the Maniac, let alone keeping the city safe, which they just have not been able to successfully do, Reed manages to turn Brainiac's ship into a universal teleporter, eventually managing to lock away Brainiac and the Maker's infused persona onto the ship. Reed remotely activates the universal portal, sending the ship and the Maniac into the vastness of the multiverse with an unknown destination. But as they are transported away, their trip is cut short. They are found and taken in by the Council of Reeds. However, these Council of Reeds are a little bit different. Every single one of them is a Reed Richards who has infused themselves with another Superman villain. You can only imagine that these Reed Superman villains want a form of revenge on their own Supermans and Fantastic Fours. Another one we can look at here is Darkseid and Annihilus. Annihilus awakens on Apocalypse, unsure of where he is and how he got there. Finding himself tethered to these mother boxes, incapable of moving, Darkseid approaches him with the cosmic rod in hand. He tells Annihilus that if he wants it back, he must locate the anti-life equation on Earth, and then the cosmic rod will be returned to him. Wanting to do anything to have the cosmic rod in his possession, of course, he goes to Earth and starts trashing and destroying everywhere he appears just to find anti-life. He does find anti-life in the mind of Mr. Miracle. Superman and the Fantastic Four do try to protect him, but they fail. Annihilus wins, takes Mr. Miracle, returns to Apocalypse. As he is returned to Darkseid, Mr. Miracle is killed for the anti-life equation, in which Darkseid is now in possession of, and he returns the cosmic rod to Annihilus. Annihilus wields it. After this, he really does not take kindly to being used by Darkseid, so the two of them have a little bit of a sparring match. Throughout the fight, they both realize how insanely powerful and capable they are. Maybe they should both return to Earth and defeat the enemies they hate so much. All while Darkseid gets to take over Earth as well. Returning to Earth and also bringing the corpse of Mr. Miracle with them, he throws him at their feet to basically warn them what will come of their planet. As time goes on in this story, Reed does figure out that there is something hiding within the mind of Mr. Miracle. Even though he's dead, he discovers the life equation is also hiding inside. If used, this could heavily counteract Darkseid. Sue Storm ends up reciting the equation and is capable of holding, wielding, and maintaining said power. She immediately becomes a threat to Darkseid and Annihilus, eventually bringing this fight up into space. Through the effort of trying to fight her, and a distraction basically, Superman slips the cosmic rod off of Annihilus and breaks it in half. It immediately causes a wormhole in which Superman and the Fantastic Four throw both of the villains through it. On the other side of this wormhole, Darkseid and Annihilus arrive in an unknown universe that has absolutely no life in any direction. With their ego and their arrogance, Darkseid and Annihilus begin to fight one another for each other's failures. I also have Super-Skrull and Amazo. Skrull discovers the creation of a bot called Amazo, which shares his similar power sets, and he steals it, beginning to work on it himself, changing its programming and genetic material. And he also gives Amazo shapeshifting by allowing Amazo to scan Skrull himself. They both set out to ambush Johnny Storm, in which they defeat him. Skrull locks him away, and Amazo now acts as Johnny Storm within the rest of the Fantastic Four. Skrull, from his part of the plan, removes Lois Lane and starts to spend his days around Clark Kent and Superman, pretty much watching every move he makes and figuring out everything he possibly can about the Man of Steel. He now has the full power he needs, and he goes to the Baxter building, finally giving Amazo the chance to strike on the Fantastic Four. Both of them end up subduing the team. He uses the communications array in the Baxter building to signal the Skrull Empire to begin making their way to Earth. Superman then receives a message of help from Reed at the Baxter building, in which he arrives. On the other hand, Lois and Johnny awaken in the lab that Skrull was testing on Amazo. As they start scanning the area, they find blueprints on the Amazo android. They find a way that can actually make it go against Skrull with a couple of programming prompts. Lois decides to stay in the lab to see if she can find anything else, and Johnny decides to return to the Baxter building to give them a little bit of relief. With Amazo turning on Super-Skrull, bringing in that relief, it doesn't last that long. With how powerful and smart Skrull is, along with the creativity in which he uses his powers, eventually he tears Amazo apart and uses his android body as armor for himself. With not much time to figure out how they can beat Skrull by force, they decide one of the best options is to completely tear down the Baxter building. While Reed and Johnny try and distract Super-Skrull as much as they can, Superman and the Thing go all the way down to the bottom and start attacking every support structure possible, while Sue Storm goes outside and covers the building in a massive invisible orb, keeping the destruction from hurting innocent civilians around. Destroying the building and watching it crumble and topple, Skrull is completely furious. With that, Lois finds a self-destruct code in the lab and inserts it to destroy all the pieces that Super-Skrull was wearing and utilizing. All of this somewhat weakening him and even causing a bit of fatigue. Superman and the Fantastic Four all take turns completely wailing on him. It gets too much for Skrull, he's beat down, and he loses. After his defeat, they place him in Stryker's Island, isolated from other metahumans, but where he, regardless of his situation, begins to think of ways to make his return, knowing that he is surrounded by tons of metahumans with powers to steal, all sitting in the same prison he is. Now, last but certainly not least of all the characters you could match up together, I decided to go with Lex Luthor and the Frightful Four. This Frightful Four is going to be a little different than usual. It's actually not going to be made up of Marvel characters. It'll be an idea that Lex Luthor has created using DC characters, but maybe seeing inspiration from Marvel characters who have once done the Frightful Four, perhaps. The Baxter building has moved to Metropolis, and the Fantastic Four have begun to change the city in ways that Lex Luthor never has. People start to see the Fantastic Four as a change they've always needed, and their technological marvels will lead them into a new way of life. Luthor's stock begins to plummet, and LexCorp's business is waning in Metropolis. He, of course, cannot let this happen, and he is just insanely pissed with the Fantastic Four. He invites the Fantastic Four to have a business meeting with him at LexCorp. This is probably something that Lex Luthor has been planning for at least a couple of weeks to ensure that his plan is bulletproof. Lex's fake, kindly gestured nature is quickly disappearing, and the Fantastic Four notice something is very wrong. Here, he ambushes them with the Frightful Four. These are characters that will enact as the Fantastic Four, but will create discourse amongst the people of Metropolis to soil their name and their image. During this fight, the surprise they give to the Fantastic Four, they do gain the upper hand and defeat them. This Frightful Four consists of Plastic Man as Mr. Fantastic, Gypsy as Invisible Woman, Sunboy as Human Torch, and Clayface as the Thing. I had to make some creative decisions here. Plastic Man, is a hero, but was once a criminal. Gypsy is a hero, but in this world, she's maybe a villain. Sunboy is a hero in the future, but again, in this world, he exists in modern day as a villain. With the Fantastic Four locked up in LexCorp, the Frightful Four show their true colors and make it known to the city of Metropolis who they are. This, of course, makes everyone feel differently about them and honestly a little scared. But Superman does not trust it. Based off of what he has seen over the Fantastic Four in the years of this universe, he knows something is not adding up. As Clark, with the help of Lois, he starts to do some investigating and journalism work. But as Superman, he involves himself in the Frightful Four's dealings, which causes them to get into a couple of fights. During one of these fights, Superman notices something very, very odd. He notices a little bit of clay that's been left behind on his cape. And that doesn't make sense because none of those characters are supposed to produce any form of clay. Eventually, Superman and Lois deduce that Luthor is in fact involved with the real Fantastic Four's disappearance due to his company being brought down, and the Frightful Four are a group of villains who have been contracted by Luthor to soil their image. Superman goes to LexCorp to confront Lex Luthor. While there, Lex Luthor, completely admitting to what he has done, he outfits all of his lights to slowly dim into red solar energy, which completely weakens Superman, taking all of his power away. He then takes Superman and locks him in the same cells alongside the Fantastic Four, each of their cells using a form of technology which strips every individual character's power away from them. So we do have to find a way to shoehorn Lois Lane into a story. Superman's suit ends up having a tracker on it so she can always see where he is, and when she finds out that he has been stuck at LexCorp for a couple of hours, she knows something is wrong. She finds a way to break in and frees every single one of them from their cells. Superman needs to go off and deal with Lex Luthor one-on-one while she convinces the Fantastic Four, even for a very brief moment, fight the Frightful Four in front of cameras so that at least the city of Metropolis can know they've been duped by the wrong people. At the end of all this, the Fantastic Four defeat the Frightful Four and arrest all of them, and Superman does the exact same thing to Lex Luthor. The Fantastic Four, thanks to the help of Superman, have regained their public image and their stock rises, with LexCorp going completely bankrupt. However, right at the end, Reed Richards notices that there is a massive anonymous investor within their company. They have no idea who it is or who it could be, and it's actually Lex Luthor who divested all of his funds and resources at the last second into Fantastic Four Inc. That way, if Lex Luthor ever gets out of prison, he is going after the Fantastic Four again and taking their entire company with him. There you go, guys. A couple of matchups of what Superman and Fantastic Four villains would do against a team-up of Superman and Fantastic Four. There were a couple of other honorable mentions I didn't get to, stuff like the Puppeteer and Toyman, or Doomsday and Mole Man. There are just so many other options in general. So you guys let me know in the comments below what your favorite story and team up was that I created, and what your team ups would look like if they ever did another Superman and Fantastic Four crossover. That is all I have for you in this video. I do hope you all enjoyed it, and until the next time, I will talk to you all very soon.